Hi everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Candour Connects. This week we have a great guest. I was lucky enough to sit down earlier today and speak to Becky O'Farrell from Covea Insurance. She is the technology recruitment partner there. We covered off everything from the differences between external and internal recruitment, recruitment process, recruiting during the pandemic, contract to perm, do salaries matter on front sheets? And obviously the most important question at the end of all these interviews is the duck versus horse battle, which I know a few of you have already commented on here on LinkedIn. Do give it a watch, do give it a download. It's available obviously here on LinkedIn, but it's also available as a Spotify link, so you can listen to the audio version. Enjoy. Thank you. We are delighted to welcome Becky O'Farrell here from Covea Insurance this afternoon. Hi Becky, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. Are you?
Yeah, not too bad at all. Okay, starting from the beginning, you went to the University of Huddersfield doing fashion, and that led straight into recruitment. How did that sort of transition go from obviously doing a degree in something completely non-recruitment related to moving into the recruitment industry?
Yeah, quite a strange move, I think, when you look at it like that. Like a lot of recruiters, I think I kind of fell into recruitment straight from university. Really enjoyed my degree in fashion and textiles, but I think after doing a placement year, kind of realised that industry wasn't really for me. Finished the degree, but then found myself, looking for any graduate job, fell into recruitment. In executive search as a generalist researcher, quite quickly moved into their IT leadership practice and have been in recruitment ever since.
Right. And when you first got into recruitment, I'm always interested to know, did you just take it initially because it was a job, or did you have long-term aspirations and think that this could potentially be a career move for me?
I think initially when I applied to it, it was just a graduate job. But then
Yeah.
once I started to look into it a bit more, had a couple of interviews, went to the company, everything like that, I think I thought, actually, yeah, this could be the career for me. And especially after a couple of months in the role,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it and couldn't really see myself doing anything else. I just loved speaking with different people every day, helping them find the jobs and the variety of it, really.
Yeah. And that was agency side when you first
Yeah,
started.
yeah. So I started in exec search,
Mm-hmm.
and then I kind of moved between the two. So did a couple of years in executive search at Berwick Partners, and then moved into in-house tech recruitment again at Sky Bet, where I was there for getting on for a couple of years, and then did another short stint in agency before I kind of realised what I missed about being in-house, and went back in-house quite quickly to Covea, and that's where I am now.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I've only ever worked on this side, but obviously a lot of people make the move you made. What is it about in-house that suits you more than the agency side of things? I mean, I suppose what is the fundamental difference, and what is it about that suits you?
Yeah, for me, I think the main difference is being in the business that you're recruiting for, being part of that, seeing the
Mm-hmm.
people that you've hired come in and deliver all this cool stuff and yeah,
Yeah,
just really feeling part of something rather than kind of being outside and delivering a service almost. The kind of bread and butter of the roles, I suppose, are similar, the sourcing, the hiring, interviewing, filling roles. Um, but I really enjoy the breadth of things that comes with an internal recruitment role as well. So, events, employer brand, everything really, a bit more of the strategic side of things, that makes it, I think, a bit more suited to me than external recruitment.
definitely. And we will come on to this a little bit more later on, but do you think, as it's come up now, do you think that your background on this side of the fence, if you like, on the agency side, do you think that makes you, do you have a greater empathy for recruiters who are trying to work with Covea or ring you a million times every week or email you 1,000 times a day? Do you feel, do you empathize a little bit more with that because you've been on this side of the fence?
I think so, yeah, because
Yeah.
I kind of understand what you have to do to
Mm.
do your job at the end of the day, and I think it also allows me to understand what you need as an agency recruiter to do a good job
Yeah.
in terms of kind of all the information you need, all that sort of thing. So I think it does help to have experience on both sides.
Yeah, definitely. So, just in short, obviously you're at Covea now. Just as a quick overview, who are Covea apart from the biggest insurance company no one's ever heard of, quote unquote?
Exactly. Yeah, you've stolen what I always say. So yeah, we're a big insurance company. A lot of people have never heard of us because we don't have any direct to consumer products under the name Covea. So we have all sorts of different insurance products from, pet, motor, high net worth, commercial, protection, all sorts. The list goes on. But a lot of them are kind of delivered through brokers and third parties, and a lot of white label products. So one example I use, because a lot of people can kind of understand it, is if you were to buy your car insurance through John Lewis, that's one of our like white label products. That's us behind that, with their branding on the front, and we have quite a few relationships like that. In terms of the sort of tech and Covea digital, we're in the middle of a really big digital transformation at the moment. So really exciting time to be part of Covea. That's changing everything from kind of the ways that we work. We've already really undergone that shift to the agile ways of working. That's pretty well established, but we're still on that journey of transforming everything from our internal systems right through to our external facing products, doing some really industry changing stuff actually. So really exciting time to be joining, but I think it's quite a good opportunity to join something that's almost got kind of the feel of a startup in terms of the investment in the tech, the pace that we're moving, but that security of being part of that quite bigger insurance business as well.
Yeah. You sound as though you've answered that question before. You've got that factor down.
I don't know if I've actually answered it as a question before, but I speak to a lot of no. Whenever I speak to candidates, no one knows who we are, so I
Which is
probably
funny,
say
isn't it?
that about 10 times a day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was flawless. And so, what is your specific role there? What's your role at Covea day to day?
Yeah, so I am technology recruitment partner, so responsible for essentially everything tech recruitment.
Mhm.
So when I joined back in October, the whole talent acquisition team were very new.
Yeah,
Before that, recruitment was essentially just handled by the hiring managers. Sort of they just filled their own role. So
yeah,
it was all sort of very reactive, very agency reliant, and quite chaotic, to be honest. So very expensive and hard to manage. So when I came in, one of the first things that I was to do was to really introduce a little bit of process, and bring a little bit of organisation to things. Um, that's all in place now. Everything's running pretty smoothly, but my role's really broad, which I love. So it's everything from kind of the hands-on sourcing,
mhm,
speaking with candidates, finding them, the right person for the role, right through to events, resource planning, employer brand, everything basically that you can think of that comes under tech recruitment is me.
definitely. So, did you? I mean, you talk about digital transformation. It sounds as though there was almost a recruitment transformation in October when you joined. Did you have to get all the managers' buy-ins to completely changing the way they all worked as one, or was everyone on board with yes, this is a bit crazy how we go about it. It's a bit disjointed. We need someone like Becky on
Yeah.
to bring it all
It was
together.
somewhere between the two, really, I think, because the I think the SLT were all pretty bought in because they could see sort of the cost of how they were working. Um, but with some of the other hiring managers and stakeholders, it was a little bit more of a challenge to get their buy-in because if
Mhm.
they didn't sort of really realize the costs associated with just sort of going to these agencies, there is a lot of benefits to sort of recruiting the way they were as well. It was fast, it was easy, it was kind of just done for them. All they had to do was look at CVs, say yes, no, and do a couple of interviews.
Yeah,
So I think it has been quite a long process getting that buy-in from the hiring managers and stakeholders, and probably one of the biggest challenges of my role, to be honest, so far. Um, but I think we're getting to that point now where they're seeing the process is working in terms of sort of actually getting the right people into the role, but I can also see them show them the sort of numbers as well and the kind of savings that we're making by increasing our direct hires.
mhm.
And I think just having that evidence to back it up as well as a nice, efficient process should make their lives a little bit easier and just
Yeah,
really helps
definitely.
with that buy-in.
Yeah, exactly. If they see it working. So what would you say is your process from job spec landing in your inbox? How do you work? I'm not sort of talking about specifics and giving away trade secrets about how you find candidates or anything like that, but do you guys sort of have a time to hire whereby you'll be given X amount of time to direct source and then you'll go out to agencies, or how does that process work with regards to the internal situation there at Covea?
Yeah, so we've got I think we've got quite a good process in place now. It's nothing, I'd say, groundbreaking or anything like that.
Yeah.
But essentially, how it works is whenever a hiring manager feels they have a need for a new role within their team, they have to, whether it's a new or a backfill, they have to submit a role request form to myself. And then what we have is a weekly resource meeting with the SLT and our sort of someone who heads up our IT finance team. And from there, we discuss all the role requests. They're either approved or not approved, and nothing can be kind of recruited if it's not gone through that meeting. Because where I think that's in place, essentially when I joined, there wasn't any kind of approval process or anything like that. So sometimes we get quite far down the line with recruitment before anyone actually realised we were recruiting for this role. And it might not necessarily be the budget for it. So that just kind of makes sure that everything's in place before we even sort of press go. From there, there's obviously the whole kind of, I'll sit down with the hiring manager, we'll put together a bit of a sourcing plan, we'll make a bit of an interview plan, all that sort of thing, just so we're both on the same page. I'll find out exactly what they're looking for. We have fairly recently, at this point, then introduced a bit of a delay before we go out to agencies. We are trying to increase our direct hires, and one of actually the most effective things has been implementing this short delay. So we'll always now work the roles directly for at least 2 weeks in the first instance, and then me and the hiring manager will assess where it's at, if we're getting kind of the volume and quality of candidates that we need. If we're not, then we'll go out to our PSL and they'll support us on that. That's absolutely fine. But if we are, obviously it's always a bonus if we can fill it directly. And I think just having that little window to give me a bit of a head start does really help. So from that, it's the candidate generation phase. So I'll do the hands-on sourcing. We'll also, advertise the role on our website and LinkedIn, things like that. Nothing new there, and then we'll kind of go through the interviews and to offer. So I think it's nothing new, but it's just a really good solid process that everyone understands now, and it works for us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've kind of hit the nail on the head, I think. I mean, you've obviously been in the industry a while, but where I sit, recruitment agencies, we're almost a plan B, aren't we? And it's probably the way it should be. But it's got to be an efficient plan B. So you lead me nicely to my next question was, what's your general view of recruitment agencies now? Not just the ones you deal with. Do you guys see them as a kind of a necessary evil? I'm doing down my own industry here. I don't mean a necessary evil, I suppose, but do you see them as that, or do you see them as a potentially a valuable part of your process there?
Yeah, so I think there is pros and cons at the end of the day to working with agencies, but I think at times they're definitely a really valuable extension of your team. We're quite a small talent acquisition team, and like I said, I'm the only recruiter in tech. And there's been times where we've had huge volumes of roles, over 100 vacancies at any one time, and there's no way that I could have filled them all myself within a reasonable time frame. So there is instances like that where it would be extremely difficult to work as an internal recruiter without the support of those agencies. There's obviously downsides to sometimes working with them, and I think it really does vary agency by agency on how kind of helpful they are. But no, I think generally as a whole they can be a really valuable extension of your team. It's just being careful about choosing when you use them.
Yeah, definitely. And when you look at recruitment agencies in general, I mean, the job's changed a lot, especially in my Jurassic years, but are you just looking for agencies who can find the right people, buy into your culture, obviously understand the roles, understand the people you want to hire? Or do you look for agencies who offer more than that? I mean, we're doing this video now, which is something 2 years ago no one was doing in recruitment, maybe 5 years ago. And now it's a lot more than just putting bums on seats. Is that how you look at recruiters, or is it just the delivery angle that's really important to you guys there?
I think both are important. I think sort of initially it is the ability to fill those roles, to understand what we're looking for, to kind of represent us to the market in the best way they can. So making sure that candidate experience and everything is as good as it can be, and the ability to follow our process is absolutely key. I'd say they're the kind of bread and butter of what you look for in an agency. But then those other more value add bits that you spoke about. So yeah, helping us to put on events or perhaps doing a podcast and CV help for candidates, all those extra value add bits can be very helpful in terms of not only just sort of the candidate experience, but also helping to raise awareness of us as an employer in the area as well.
Yeah.
So there is definitely value in doing those extra things too. And I think, especially because we have quite a small PSL, we work with only 4 agencies exclusively. I think doing those extra bits really does make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I know you're not going to proactively invite 1,000 recruitment calls off the back of this podcast, but if you were on this side of the fence and you wanted to work with a client like Covea, it doesn't necessarily have to be Covea, but there are recruiters out there now coming back from pandemic with 0 clients or very few clients, and they're desperate to sort of make an impact and get noticed and get new clients on. What would work with you? I'm not saying it's going to work if they ring you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, but in a general sense, how do people gain your attention and get a spot in the back of your mind for future PSL reviews or whatever it may be?
Yeah, so I think in the first instance, when it comes to actually just the approach, it's not feeling like spammy. Like, I honestly, I probably must get about 10 emails or LinkedIn messages and stuff a day, probably more. That just feels very cold, very generic, or they might be spamming me a CV that we've not even got a vacancy for. And that just completely, turn off straight away. I think I do speak with a reasonable amount of agencies every week, just having a conversation about what's going on in the market, everything, how we work, everything like that. Because if someone approaches me with quite sort of a personalized message, just looking for a bit of a chat, or they're honest around what they're looking for and they're not trying to spam me, I'll be quite happy to have a conversation with them and tell them about how we work. I think it's got to work both ways. I'd like to hear about what that person can do to sort of add value to us. But no, I think it's really important to get that approach right, so you don't just kind of blend in with the rest of them.
Definitely. So if I can now change tack slightly and go back to mid-March, that seems a long time ago now, everything's great in the world, and then bang, the pandemic hits. How has that affected yourself and how you work, the recruitment team there, and Covea as a whole? How have you guys had to adjust to what's happened in the last 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, so as Covea as a whole, I think they reacted very well and very quickly. So we have a big business. I think there's over 2,000 people of us working across the UK, and a large number of them are also sort of contact centre staff. So weren't set up to work remotely or anything like that. But I think it was within a couple of days, 98% of the staff were working remotely, and we've been able to operate pretty much normally the whole way through, which I think is really says a lot about the tech teams and everyone who's managed to get that to happen. We did have a degree of flexibility before, but nothing on obviously what we're working like now. So for me, I probably tended to work from home 1 day a week. Now working from home 5 days a week for now, and going forwards, it's unlikely that we'll probably go back in full time. I think it's much more likely that we might go in sort of once or twice a week, and then we'll be able to work from home the rest of the time, which is great from a recruitment perspective as well as personally, because it really opens up a much bigger pool of candidates that we can have access to. I think if you're only having to commute once or twice a week, I know I would travel much further, rather than if it was to be every day. What else? So we were really lucky. We carried on recruiting throughout the whole of lockdown. Things didn't really slow down in tech anyway. And I think that did work in our favour a little bit too. A lot of our competitors who we sort of compete with for talent, they did sort of pause recruitment for a while. And so that almost meant that we had sort of pick of a lot of people who were looking for new roles. So lots of things have changed. The biggest one obviously being working remotely, but I think Covea have done a actually really good job of carrying on operating efficiently, but also making sure that everyone is okay and is able to do their job. And there's definitely some positives to take away. The big one being the ability to work remotely.
Yeah. How have you found that? I've been doing these podcasts and speaking to candidates and clients and all the rest of it, and I would naturally assume everyone would be like, it's great, I get to work from home for 5 days a week. But I'm not. There's quite a few who sort of miss the office environment, especially if you've got a great environment, which companies like you guys probably do. Have
Yeah.
you seen that a lot of people are as keen to get back in the office as they are to stay where they are? And do you think that this pandemic has almost shown Covea in this instance that working from home can work, and that you can function just as effectively, if not more so, by being even more flexible than maybe you were before it all started?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's 100% shown anyone who was doubting if we could kind of work from home that we can. We've been able to operate sort of 100% remotely. So there's definitely going to be a degree of that taken forwards. But I have been surprised by how many people want to get back into the office, but I do understand it as well. I think there's definitely
Yeah.
a balance to be had. But you do miss that environment. I'm quite lucky. Sort of, I've seen sort of a few people throughout, and I don't live on my own and things like that. And I think with my job, I'm speaking to people all day, every day, so I don't kind of have that loneliness element of things because I am talking to everyone still. But I definitely can see why people miss it, and I definitely miss it to a degree that I'll definitely be going back in sort of once, twice a week when we can.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you talked then about how Covea has very fortunately continued recruiting pretty much straight through the pandemic. How have you found that? How have you found the market? And what I mean by that is, when the pandemic first started, I wrongly, I think, assumed, oh, the floodgates are going to open. There's going to be .NET developers we never knew existed flooding the market, and JavaScript and all the stuff, data engineers, data science, a lot. And there has been more, but maybe not as many as you would think, because people have gone on furlough and have not wanted to move because of uncertainty. How have you found recruiting for some of the roles post or during the pandemic as opposed to before it?
Yeah, so I think it's almost been a market of two halves. So there
Okay.
has been, um, unfortunately, obviously quite a few redundancies and things like that across the market. So that does mean there is a lot more candidates on the market than there usually would be. We're seeing a
Yeah.
lot more applications through the adverts and stuff than I've ever seen before.
Yeah.
Sometimes for our tech roles, it wouldn't be unusual to not see a single application from the advert. It's a lot more sort of sourcing, you know what it's like. You've actually kind of got to proactively search those people out, but I'm seeing more and more applications directly, and also applications for people who are sort of almost massively overqualified for the roles that they're applying for as well. So
Yeah.
we are looking at as business kind of what we can do around that, and is there any way we can kind of make the most of these people that are applying for these roles. But then I think the other side of things is that people are very nervous to move. There is a lot of hesitation, and I completely understand that as well. They've got that stability of their current role, and they're quite reluctant to leave that. And on that side of things, I've seen a lot more people kind of withdraw very last minute from offers and everything than I've seen before too. Not huge numbers, but we have had more people pull out perhaps like a week before they were meant to start and things like that, more than that I've seen before. So
Is
yeah,
that
I
to go
think it's a bit of a mixed
to,
bag.
sorry, is that to
So
go to other roles, or that's because they've decided to stay where they are?
yeah, I think they've got, well, most of them have got cold feet and decided to stay where they are.
Hmm. Okay. And do you find now that more people know who you are? As in, I mean, we see a role in Halifax that's quite generic, advertised by another agency or whatever, and go, that's Covea. Do you find that now? Do you find that more and more people know who you guys are, as opposed to maybe when you started in October, because of the volume of recruitment you've been doing?
I think so. We're getting there with that. When I joined, I certainly hadn't really heard of Covea before. Um, and but I think we've been doing a lot of work, especially the sort of engagement team and stuff like that around getting our name out there.
Yeah.
Um, And I think it's getting to that point now, a combination of just the volume of roles we have and people talking about it and seeing our adverts everywhere. And we've been doing other things like events and all sorts, really, content all over the place. And that is really helping raise that awareness. And I think being one of the bigger employers in Halifax does help as well. Often if you'll see a tech role in Halifax, it's very likely to be us. So definitely has its advantages.
Yeah, well, I was thinking how to phrase that because I don't want a baying mob from Halifax at my house tonight. So I was going to try and think of a way of saying that. Obviously, when you think of Yorkshire and business and all the rest of it, you maybe naturally think of Leeds, Sheffield, maybe all these places. Do you see being in Halifax as an advantage from that point of view, that you are an option outside of these core areas?
I'm starting to. So when I first joined, I did think it would be one of the harder sort of parts of the role, trying to almost
Yeah,
sell Halifax to people. But actually, it does have its benefits. There are a lot of people who don't want to work city centre,
yeah,
but also it's very commutable, a lot more than I would have ever thought. So there's direct trains in from Manchester,
yeah,
Leeds, obviously Huddersfield, all those surrounding areas. So we're actually quite well placed for a lot of commuters to travel in.
yeah.
But as well, yeah, those people who don't want to work city centre, it's quite nice. You can be close enough to a city to get all the perks of that. But then there's lots of like lovely rural surrounding areas where people would probably prefer to live.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you touched on this before. So getting back to the nitty gritty, if you like, of recruiting during the pandemic and the differences and what have you. So you actually mentioned this yourself. When you see a CV that is overqualified, what's the Covea or Becky's approach to that? Do you immediately dismiss them as being someone who just wants a job at the moment? Because you can understand that to a degree, can't you? If someone's out of work, they want a job. How would you assess someone like that who is on paper overqualified for a role that you may have?
Yeah, so I think I wouldn't want to kind of immediately just say no straight away because they've obviously able to do the job even if they're overqualified and you don't know their situation. It might be that they want to take something that's a little bit less stressful or they've got something else they might be studying and so don't want to kind of commit to the hours that a more senior role might involve. But I think I would usually try find out a little bit more about their personal situation. If
Yeah.
obviously if they've not got the skills, they've not got the skills. But if it's that they're overqualified, it's definitely
Mhm.
worth having a conversation with them because they might have a reason for applying for this role, but also they once you found out a little bit more about them and what they're looking for, you might actually know of a role that's coming up in a week that they're actually a
Yeah.
perfect fit for. So I think it would be a waste of a potentially a good candidate just to immediately say no. If obviously it's sometimes a question of volume. I know for example, some of the customer service roles we've had ridiculous number of applications, and then it will be impossible to call through every single one of them to find out a bit more about what they're looking for. But if the volume allows, I would always try just to find out a bit more about the sort of person's circumstances.
Definitely. And would you say that's the same answer in effect for my next question, which was going to be, I know you recruit for perm and contract there, don't you? We're seeing an awful lot of contractors who want to go across to perm. And there's always been I'm sure you remember when you're on this side of the fence, there's always a wariness
Yeah.
about more so now because, I speak to some end companies where they're really worried that they're just going to take this job and maybe in 6 months or 12 months when the market really picks back up again, they go again. Is your answer the same on that? Is to speak to these people and not just judge it off an application? Is that what
Yeah,
you do?
yeah, because I think I can understand why they might want to move to a permanent role at the moment, and then especially with the kind of impending IR35 changes and stuff as well. There's so many valid reasons why you might want to make that shift back into perm. So yeah, I
Yeah.
just ask them. I would have that conversation and just ask them, and at the end of the day, they might lie, they might they might not tell you the truth, but you'd like to think that you can have an honest conversation about it, and if they can give you valid reasons why they're looking to make that shift into perm, so many contractors bring such a wealth of experience. They've seen so many different things. I think it would be silly just to say no straight away because they've been contracting.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on, this was a question I asked last week on LinkedIn, and I got a myriad of answers. So I'll just ask you because you'll know. Um, do Covea, if someone's applying for a job through an agency, for example, in this instance, do you ask the agency to supply the candidate's current salary? If so, why? And if not, why not? There you go.
We usually do, or at least salary expectations.
Right.
Usually it's nice to see both. I think it's a funny one, and I'm not 100% sure where I stand on asking for current salary, because I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's a good gauge of level of experience and that sort of thing. But also they might be in a company that perhaps pays extremely well, or they might be in a company that, they might have been in the same company for like 10 years and not really see much of a pay rise and things like that. So I would be very reluctant to judge too much on that figure. But again, I think it's quite important to at least know their salary expectations, because if they're way out of budget, we don't want to waste anyone's time if we can't afford to hire them at the end of the day. I think it can be quite dangerous interviewing a candidate who's way too expensive, because they're more expensive for a reason, and then they're almost the benchmark and no one will compare. Um, so yeah, tough question. I think it's important to at least know expectations. It can be
Yeah.
helpful to know current salary as well. But it's not kind of a deal breaker if we don't get told that.
Yeah. I've not met anyone yet who knows, who can, because like you
Mm,
say, I mean, we speak to clients, and if we leave it off, they say, why have you left off their current salary? What are they hiding? But then you speak to a candidate, and I've been doing this a long time, as have you. I've never been able to come up with an answer when they say, why do you need to know my current salary? Surely it should matter
mm,
what I'm looking for.
yeah,
So I get it. I don't think there is a right answer, is there? It was just really interesting
no.
last week when I mentioned it. A lot of candidates were really sort of, why do you need to know? Why does anyone need to know, kind of thing. So, okay.
Yeah, I think more and more people are kind of shifting that way as well. And at the end of the
Mm.
day, I don't think you do really need to know, do you? But it's more of a nice to know.
Yeah, exactly. So you talk then obviously about there are certain roles you get a lot of CVs for. One of the things we're trying to do on a podcast like this, when we speak to people like yourself with your knowledge and experience, is how would you stand out? What would you advise in generic terms for these guys to stand out if they're applying for a role where there is going to be a lot of competition, or there is going to be an awful lot of applicants and an awful lot of CVs? Would you advise? I mean, I always sort of say to these people, send the CV and potentially follow it up, or tailor
Mm.
the CV to the job you want. Is that the sort of thing you would advise as well, in order to try and emphasise their skills to someone like yourself?
Exactly, yeah. I would say always tailor your CV. Um,
Mm-hmm.
look through the job spec, look at a few of the key things that they're looking for, and then try echo that in your CV.
Yeah,
Obviously, when someone's reading your CV, that's what they're going to be looking for. So really try get almost those keywords, if you like, in there, to really
yeah,
make yourself stand out. But then, yeah, following that up with a more personalised approach as well. So, I don't mind it when people will drop me a message on LinkedIn saying, I've applied for this role, or asking any questions about it, or drop us an email. I think that it's not essential. At the end of the day, if you've got a perfect CV and you're the best fit for the role, we will sort of notice you. But I think it can't harm to drop a little personalised message or something either, and it just kind of brings it to your attention, perhaps brings you to the top of the inbox, if you like.
yeah, definitely. No, it's good. So, a few more quick questions. Do degrees
Mhm.
matter?
No, I know. I don't think I would go to uni now. If no, I don't think I would go to uni then if I knew what I know now.
Okay.
I don't. I think experience is much more important at the end of the day, and I think there's going to be a big shift towards apprenticeships and stuff as well. I think with the sort of levies that businesses have to spend and everything like that. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see a shift towards that sort of things, or more of these kind of hands-on boot camps and everything like that. I think you can learn a lot from going to university, and I definitely did learn a lot. And I wouldn't have got my first job without a degree because it was a graduate job. Um, but as well, I think there's so much you can learn just by kind of getting to work as well. But I don't
Yeah.
know. To answer your question, no, I don't think that important anymore.
But yeah, education matters, kids. If you're
It
looking, if you're
does.
listening and watching, education matters. Just not
It
to me
does,
and
it
Becky.
does, and for some jobs, it's absolutely critical. Like my younger
Yeah.
sister has just gone back to uni to study teaching because obviously
Wow.
you couldn't be a teacher without a degree, could you? So there's
Yeah.
some jobs that you need it for, but I think there's other jobs where actually it can be just as beneficial to kind of go and learn that doing the job rather than go and learning it in the classroom.
Definitely. And from you assessing CVs or your hiring managers assessing CVs on the technical side, do they look for degrees in computer science? Is that a deal?
Not for the more senior roles, no. Anything that's kind of like mid-level up, more experienced hire, I wouldn't tend to look, unless there's a very specific reason why they might not need to have a degree in this, but it's rare. I think the experience is much more important. Perhaps when it comes to a more junior or entry-level role, I would look at the qualifications, not necessarily a degree, but yeah, a degree or apprenticeship or a boot camp, something like that, just because there's less to look at in terms of experience. So those qualifications, I think, are a little bit more important earlier in your career. But no, when it comes to the more experienced hires, I typically wouldn't even look, if I'm honest.
No. Okay. And another quick question. Do Covea job specs look for years of experience? Do they ever say 5 years experience in C# or whatever it may be, or do they not?
I hope not. They shouldn't do. We are doing a little bit of work around refreshing our job specs and stuff. They are
Right, okay.
they're very long, and quite old school. But no, we're trying to make sure we rule out anything in terms of sort of discrimination and making sure they're all very inclusive. So we would try avoid putting anything like X years number of experience, because obviously that will rule out someone who's younger.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was going to say, based on what I've been hearing in the market, that's the right answer. So it's all good. So the big two words that I've heard for the last however many years is candidate experience. Is that something you guys really focus on there? Because, like I think you mentioned it, you alluded to it earlier, a good candidate for Covea for one role might not be a good candidate for another, and vice versa. So in 6 months, 12 months' time, you want them to come back.
Yeah.
And I certainly know enough companies in Yorkshire who we ring someone and they say, it's not for company X, is it? Because I applied 9 months ago and had a bad experience. Is it something that in your position you've really emphasised that Covea has been important?
Yeah, I think it is really important. And I don't think we've got it perfect yet. Like I said, we're quite a new talent acquisition team. We're on that journey and we're learning new things all the time. But it's so important at the end of the day. Yeah, the talent pool in kind of the north isn't huge, and so you don't want to not be able to go back to people. But also, people talk, and you don't want someone to have a bad experience and then tell their friends, who will then tell their friends, and then quite quickly negative views on your business get out. So I think candidate experience is absolutely critical to sort of being successful when it comes to hiring. And yeah, we are working to even improve it, but I think we do quite well at the moment.
Yeah, and is that in just simple terms, things like getting back to people if they're unsuccessful, feeding back within certain time frames, this sort of thing?
Yeah, that's I think quality of feedback as well. So something that I've been sort of slowly introducing over the last few months is when I'm getting interview feedback, I'll try get sort of three positives, a bit of more sort of detailed feedback, but then also three takeaways and things that they could work on. So if they were to come back, say in 6 months, 12 months time, they'll be much more likely to get that job. So just something that they can take away to develop really. So yeah, we're looking at the sort of the quality of that feedback, as well as how quick it is. Things like the amount of information we can provide to them beforehand so that they feel really ready for that interview. The same before the tech tests, really explain to them what to expect so they can do their best. And then all the way sort of up to an after offer stage as well. So making sure the hiring managers stay in contact, they know what to expect on their first day, everything like that really.
Yeah, and I guess this is one of the things about recruitment agencies and why you may have heard they have a bad rap, is you have to make sure that that extends through anyone you work with on a recruitment basis. They have to hold those values as closely as you do, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. When you're working with an agency, they're basically representing you to the candidate market. So those candidates are getting their first impression of you through them. So I think
Yeah.
it's really important that the agencies have all that information as well. One thing that we've actually started doing, probably, God, I've no idea how long ago, maybe a month or so ago. Time's just
Yeah.
lost at the moment. We ran an agency partnership session, so all remote obviously, but sat down with the 4 agencies in our PSL and just to update them on everything like that, so remind them of our process, the journey that we're on, talk them through key projects that we're working on, our tribes, everything about kind of interview process, like online psychometrics, everything like that. So basically they were as fully prepared as they could be to give that experience too.
Yeah, and it's so important, isn't it, that we have a phrase here, we want to work with clients, and it sounds twee and it's a bit cheesy, but there are clients who are still a bit old school. Here's the job spec, send us your best 3 CVs. And that's probably where bad recruitment practice comes in, because if you're encouraging agencies to work like that, you're going to get the service that a lot of people don't want. Whereas if you, like you say, if they're an extension of your business, you can be ensured that Covea's name in the marketplace stays strong, and through them you get the kind of experience that you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And I know from working in agencies, well, how frustrating it is when you don't have that information that you need. So, you know, candidates will ask you a question, you have to be like, oh, I'll get back to you on that. And then you're you're the middleman. And I think if you've just got that information straight away, it's a much better experience for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. So the floor is yours here. When we work with people, we always say to them, why would anyone work at insert company name? So I guess you say this to all your candidates as well, so you'll have this down, but why would a senior tech professional who, you sit and do the same job as I do pretty much, the opportunities that these guys have got. They've got a lot of opportunities, especially the top end skilled guys. Why would they come to Covea? What is it about Covea which is the sell, if you like?
Yeah, so I think, like I said before, we're in that quite unique position where we're in the middle of this huge digital transformation, which means that there genuinely is kind of the opportunity to shape things, to put your stamp on things, and you are actually given the kind of autonomy to do that. I think it's rare that you can join such a big business and be able to really, shape things, change things, and deliver on that. And I think, it's just really exciting. And you can see where we've been and see where we're going. And I think, you'd be crazy not to want to be part of it.
The new slogan. I have one final question, and this is the most important question of everything, Becky, and I didn't prep you for this. But
Oh, no.
we've talked about recruitment, we've talked about Covea, we've talked about the market, the pandemic. However, we ask everyone at the end of these little interviews we do, which would you rather fight? Now, I'm sure you're not a violent lady, but if you had to, what would you rather fight? 20 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck? Now, you've got to think about it. Don't rush into this. This is strategic.
No, I'd
20...
say this is an easy one. So I actually have horses. So I would 100% say 20 duck-sized horses. I would rather take my chances with those.
Why? Instead of 1 duck-sized horse?
Because no, 20 duck-sized horses, because I think I just understand them. I know I would know how to scare them off. No real rationale behind it, but I think I'll be much more comfortable fighting off the horses than the giant duck.
You wouldn't believe, we put posts on trying to get traction and you name it on LinkedIn, and that is the one question which everyone has an opinion on. Never mind what's the market like, contract v perm, salaries, you name it. That question is sweeping Yorkshire as to what you would rather do. And we should give a special mention to a certain dog sat not very many feet from you. No one can see it, but Baxter. Can we see Baxter before we go?
He's fast asleep.
Best behaved dog.
He's been very good. He's been a lot better than I thought he would be.
Yeah, we've been on tenterhooks for the last 50 minutes waiting for a dog to come flying across and take us out. But Becky, listen, thank you so much for thank you for coming online. We'll share this out on LinkedIn, as you know. Everyone apply to Covea. Send me your CV first, but then apply to Covea, and we'll go from there. But listen, Becky, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Stephen. See you later.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.